Hey, this is part 2 of chapter 2. Now we left off on page 65, so we're picking up on page 66, establishing the service strategy. And if you look at the bottom, I think this is going to give us a good example of what they're talking about. Like, how do you actually create and define your service strategy? And the first thing that notes on there is, who is my customer? And I mentioned earlier that, we have to understand the demographics of whoever your customers are. Like, who am I selling to, right? And then what am I currently doing, or what can I do to help achieve organizational excellence? Going through a checklist like this, that's a gap analysis. You should be doing a gap analysis periodically, checking in and say, well, this is what we intended, but where are we with this a year later, kind of thing. And this should be done on a rolling basis. We don't, it's not like one and done. And then on page 67, customer-friendly systems. Typical system components is what they're really talking about here. They mentioned advertising. I can just walk us through the different components that make up a typical system. So advertising is pretty obvious. Most of us know that. But we can make really big mistakes with our advertising. So for example, Macy's, who is not in business in La Crosse anymore. I hadn't shopped there in years because this one particular thing drove me nuts. They'd advertise when they'd have a sale, so much percent off of this other that or other thing. And you'd go in there and that discount only applies if you use your Macy's charge card, right? Your credit card. I don't carry a Macy's credit card, so then I'm not eligible for the discount. I thought, well, you know what, then why should I shop here? It's ridiculous. Don't advertise it that way, and don't have the fine print so small that old people like me can't see it unless we have our little cheaters on, right? They give us some examples here, too. This is what I like about this book, too. And all of this, make sure you read the examples. Read through everything so you get the examples that they're using. Complaint or problem resolution. This drives me nuts. This is a Walmart thing, too. Like, they give you an example here, like how to approve a $10 check. They have to call the manager over, and then the manager comes over. And just like the book says here, the manager comes over. They don't even look at the check. They sign it and walk away. So it's really just lip service, right? I mean, you can't trust your employees. Drives me crazy. Don't do it. Service delivery systems. This one's related to, on page 49, that model that you're working with for assignment 12. I think it's like the 8th one on there. Service delivery systems. And we talked about this in chapter 1 on how there's so many different ways that we can deliver. Now, this talks about it in a little bit different sense on page 69, like, is it direct or indirect? Direct is like one-on-one, personal, people type thing. Indirect might be through the use of technology. Back in the day, I remember when they first got ATMs, that was just like magical. And that was way back when. And I just thought that was the most coolest thing ever, right? And now look where we are. Geez, you can just get everything off your phone, right? Third-party delivery, like outsourcing or offshoring. Now, like call centers, for example, is one example they give us here. Accounting functions, HR functions a lot of HR functions are farmed out to other companies. The problem with that is that you then don't really necessarily have control of the customer service that's going on in the agency that's handling that part of your business. So you have to be really mindful of that. And having a customer service oriented organization, a learning organization, means that you work with vendors or suppliers or people, internal customers, right, that are of the same mindset. You can't have that. You can't say that you're a Class A company or whatever, and then use a call center that doesn't train their people, and it's a bad experience when people have a problem about your product or service, right? On the next page, on 70, they give you some examples of direct versus indirect. Then we talk about, let's see, they talk about the global impact, like saving millions of dollars in taxes and revenue through like distribution call centers and stuff like that. This has changed a great deal. These aren't so cheap anymore, right? I'll give the example of like India. They used to just go over to India and pay people, 50 cents a day, if that, to work in the call centers. Well, guess what? Fast forward how many years? They have one of the most educated populations in the world. They're not going to settle for that. They're not settling for that. So it's a lot more expensive to have a call center there. So then they move to different markets like Mexico. So now we saw a lot of call centers got shut down, and then they moved them to Mexico. Well, they'll catch up there too as well. But we also see companies bringing it back home because they're they're really not, as things sort of level out. Like, wait a minute, they make this much. What are we doing here? And if they're not going to train their people, pay them low wages and not train them, it's not going to align well with the parent company and the type of customer service they want to deliver. So there are companies. I was working with a company up by Eau Claire actually that closed down their operations in Mexico and brought it all back to the Eau Claire Osseo area, which it was fascinating working with those folks. 71, they talk about tools for service measurement. So how well are you doing? How are you going to measure it, right? And they give us a list of lots of different ways that we can do that. Employee focus groups, employee opinion surveys, customer focus groups, mystery shoppers. I was a mystery shopper when I was in college. It was fabulous. I loved it. It was a blast. Customer satisfaction surveys, comment cards, profit and loss statements, your P&L statements, employee exit interviews, walkthrough audits, on-site management visits, management inspections. I have a friend that ran her own business for many, many years. And from the day she opened her business till the day she sold it, and she had her business for probably 20 plus years, she would still routinely throughout the week call her business to see how they answered the phone. And if they didn't answer it properly, when she got back to her place of business, she would sit down with them and say, listen, I called today as a customer. She just, and you need to answer that phone this way every time. There's a reason for that. And she would do some retraining, right? And if they couldn't get it after that, she'd get a new employee. Page 73, 12 strategies for promoting a positive service culture. I think you guys can read all of these. You're kind of getting the picture now, right? Starting with partner with your customers, employ the organization's vision, back to that vision statement stuff, communicate the culture and organizational vision to the customers as well on a daily basis, right? Demonstrating ethical behavior. Number 5, identify and improve your service skills. Become an expert at your organization. We were talking, the book talked about that a little bit earlier too. Demonstrating commitment on page 76. I want to talk about this a little bit. You have to really start training yourself to get away from the they type of language. And they give the example here, a common way in which this occurs, in which the use of they language when dealing with customers. This can be in reference to management or policies or procedure. And earlier when they talked about policies and procedures, and I said, don't hide behind your policies and procedures and don't hide behind your bosses, right? So they give the example here. Mrs. Howard, I'd like to help you, but our policy, that's the they part, right? Our policy says, or Mrs. Howard, I've checked on your request, but my manager, that's the they comment, my manager said we can't, right? They talk about using more positive language. And I give the example towards the end of the paragraph, positive language in its effect. Mrs. Howard, I'm terribly sorry that you were inconvenienced by our mistake. What can I do to help resolve the situation? That's not they, it's me. It's us taking responsibility for it. And then they go through 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, I think is pretty straightforward. Number 12 on 77 though, providing service follow-up. You can do this on your own. You don't have to ask your manager. That's taking initiative, right? Let's say you've had a customer that had a really rough spat while they were in there. They had just everything went wrong and blah, blah, blah. You got it all worked out and they left right at, why not the next week, give them a call or leave a message, say, you know what, I really hope your week got better. I hope that we've still been able to help you. I was glad that we were able to sort it out. And again, I just wanted to follow up to apologize for all that you had to go through. Oh my gosh, people love that stuff. As much as we're in the computer age, people still like that personal connection. Separating average companies from excellent companies, you should understand the term benchmarking. So whatever industry you're working in, you should be looking to see who is the #1 company in your industry that everybody else wants to be like. Who's the big brother of the industry, the big sister in the industry everybody wants to be like. In the hotel industry, it's Marriott. So whatever industry you're in, you should understand who's the best and why. And that helps you give you something, gap analysis, right? Well, this is where they are. Here's where we are. We'd like to get a little closer to where they are, right? Then we look at what customers want. And what I want you to do is look at there are 7 of these, right? Starts with personal recognition, courtesy, timely. How would you rank these? You know, think about that. What's the most important one for you? I might even have us doing an activity of that. If there is, you'll find it in the learning plan, right? Because not everyone is the same, right? So, what would be really fun is if you ranked them and then had a friend of yours rank them and see how see how they're different. And that pretty much takes us to the end of the chapter. It always ends with that small business perspective. So if you're really interested in a small business, make sure that you read through this and get that perspective in relation to each chapter's topic. In my world, everything you do in a big company, you can do in a small company. You should be able to actually do it even better in a small company. We don't always have the same resources, but we got that customer service edge. So there we go. There's part 2 of chapter 2, and we'll see you next time.